Okay, so today we're gonna do a chatty video, so let's see how this gets away from me. But I wanted to talk about character work and what character works or characterizations work really well for me in my reading sensibilities, because I think this is one of the most subjective part of reading, and I feel like all the time when I talk about a book I love, 9 times out of 10 it's because I love the character works. I love how they interact with each other. If I can really latch on to the characters in a book, I can like almost any genre, any plot, any pacing. But I just think that's subjective, and the reason why I think that is because we also don't all have the same best friends. We don't fall in love with the same people. Like, when we interact with people in the real world, we all form different opinions, so why wouldn't that happen with books? And also, when authors are creating people for us to engage with in their stories, there are different styles, different techniques, different things that will come across. I mean, it's gotten to the point where we have, the plot-driven versus character-driven types of stories, which, is definitely a good divider. I think it gets way messier than that. But that's why I wanted to make this video. It's probably going to be really chatty and all over the place. Like, I have some notes, but it's just something that's like nebulously in my head, and I'm going to try and get my point across. So maybe it'll help you guys understand what I mean when I say I love these characters in whatever book I'm talking about. Like, most recently I talked about The Unbroken and how much I loved both of the leads in there. And let's see what happens, and feel free to add to the conversation down in the comments, because I don't know, I think this is one of the most important parts of reading in terms of whether or not you care or connect or like characters in a work. I think that's a big decider on if a book works, like, at least for me, most of the time. So what do I want in my character work? Well, I want multidimensional characters, and what I mean by that is I don't want them to be a caricature. I don't want them to be one-note motivated. I want them to feel like someone that I could meet on the street. It doesn't mean that I need to know their whole backstory or why they got where they are, but I need to feel like they have a personality, and that personality is based off real motivators, not just because the plot needs them to be motivated a certain way. Like, I really like when a character does things not because it would help the plot, but because that's what the character would do. I actually really love when a character goes against what the plot wants that character to do. It's like one of my favorite things. I don't really know how to describe that other than when you read some more plot-driven stories, you can really tell when a character can be likable, can be fun to follow, but they really are there to get you from point A to point B, to get the thing, to accomplish the task, and it's not always explained well, the motivations of that character. So I want them to have multiple facets. I don't want them to necessarily be just the archetype, especially in fantasy. In fantasy, how many times have we met the assassin, or the orphan assassin, the fake royal assassin, not fake, but the hidden royal assassin. Like, we've had so many assassin troped characters. It's an archetype. I want them to be more than that. Same with the con artist character. There are so many stories with a con artist character, normally female. I want them to be more than that label. If it seems like it falls into too much of a trope, then I have some issues because they don't then feel real to me. I think sometimes what makes a plot-driven story not work for me is I don't get to understand the character that's at the center of the plot because we don't have the time. If something's fast-paced and plot-driven, which is not always the case, but I'm specifically thinking a fast-paced, plot-driven story is when I'm talking about this, I don't get to latch onto them, and this is happening to me currently with a fast-paced book I'm reading, where, like, I actually like the cast of characters. I feel they are relatively diverse. They all have distinct personalities, but I don't quite understand their motives, like 80% of the time, and I'm going with it, but I would be enjoying it more if I really understood why they are making the decisions they are making. I think another thing that can help with characters, which is not essential for me, I feel like this is sometimes more essential for some people than others, but I do like when there's a certain level of relatability to my characters. It doesn't have to be there. I actually do not mind if the character and I have nothing in common. One of my favorite characters to think about is a pirate in Robin Hobb, and he is not likable. Him and I would make very different decisions, but I like the character study that is that pirate character. But when I do read a character that, like, makes me see myself, I still smile. I'm still like, I get you, you get me, oh, I'm now rooting for you because, you're rooting for yourself kind of thing. I do like when they are relatable. But I also feel like the relatability is, again, what I was saying before, where, like, I want them to feel like someone who, like, if I sat down and we talked over coffee or dinner, I would understand why they make the decisions they make. Like, they are a fellow conscious human being, or I'm not always even human, right? I read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi. But I guess I want to be able to understand and empathize with the character. And if they're relatable, that just makes it even easier for me to connect with them. And I think that's this thing, is like, I just need to connect with them in some way, and that connection could be relatability, that connection could be understanding, that connection could be just like, I find you fascinating. Like, I don't necessarily have to like a character to think the character work is done well. For example, Kyle from Robin Hobb is atrocious. I hate Kyle. But I think he really represents a lot of what I hate, and I have friends who think that Kyle's not a realistic character. And I say, you are lucky to have never met your Kyle. Because he really is. It's just, sometimes you don't even make a character that real and bad on page, but Robin Hobb does not care and will do it. So I do like my characters to be something that I could interact with in the real world, even if I'm in a fantasy or sci-fi world, even if I'm with a different culture. And I think that's important too, because I read a lot of books now that are set in locations and places that are inspired by things that I don't relate to. I am in a Western culture. Sometimes I'm reading things that are based in different Asian cultures, sometimes different African countries. So I can't always relate to certain things. I'm not particularly religious. When a character has a religious motivator, I can't relate to that. But if the character work is still done right and that there's a key motivator for that character to be doing what they're doing, I'm still going to have a great time, and it will probably help me understand and learn a little bit about a culture I didn't know about. That's not the point of the work, right? Like, at the end of the day, I read for pleasure. I am hoping that there's still a good story and that I still like following this character on whatever journey. But when character work is done well, it also will it will show you other things. Like, if you are wondering, why is this character making this choice? I can't relate to it, and it's a cultural reason, then you suddenly realize in your brain, maybe you didn't know before, at least this happens to me all the time, oh, I didn't realize that this was so innately Western, how I was thinking. This is not the only way to think. And it's okay to have those realizations. I think it's important, and when character work is done really well, those things happen. I already briefly talked about this, but I love when there's a strong personality. I really like when some characters have abrasively strong personalities. Like, I also don't mind characters that, I don't know, I think some people refer to some characters as like blank slates or things you can put yourself into. I actually like those too. Like, one of the complaints I didn't have about The Starless Sea is I didn't care about Zachary's character work. Like, I thought it was fine. I understood why Zachary was doing what he was doing. I liked following things through his perspective. I could relate to Zachary. Zachary was fine for me. A lot of people don't like the character work of Zachary. I think it's because they find him bland. But maybe it's because I think I can be a little bland and I can relate to that. And sometimes I want that. Like, sometimes I want the nondescript person to be the visual, like, aid for the story, the perspective I'm seeing. But I also love strong personalities. Like, I really like when someone has like really strong character traits, like things that would probably make me nervous to interact with that person in real life because I don't feel cool enough or whatever, but I get to hang out with them in this book. Like, a thing where it's like, man, I normally don't get to like interact with these people in real life because I'm scared and awkward in social situations, but in the book I get to like be with them and like not be their best friend. I don't like actually connect that closely to characters, but like I just think they're fun. I think it's just fun to have those strong personalities, and I think that helps in a multiple POV books, which I read a lot of, to make sure your characters are distinct. That's the thing I don't like, is when all your characters blend together, and thankfully I don't read those that often, but if I can't discern who's who in your book without like a chapter header, it's not a great sign. I mean, I can get over it. It's not a deal breaker. There are always other things in a story, right? But for character work specifically that I am judging, I want to be able to like describe this person, you know, personality, especially having a couple strong traits, because I don't know, I just think those people are fun. Another thing I love in my character work is growth, especially if you have a whole series. If you can do it in a whole book though too, that's fantastic. And it doesn't have to happen, but I think regardless of the age of your character, regardless of the situation your character's in, presumably you are looking into a character's moment in life where something interesting is happening. Hopefully. Or at least, yeah, interesting is a good word. I think that's a broad enough definition. But if you're looking at this moment of interest, normally that's going to cause the character to change. I think growth is an interesting word. I don't want them to be static. I think dynamic characters is what these would have been called if I was in an English class. So I want them to be dynamic. I want them to be adapting to their surroundings and situations. I want them to not be stuck in a rut unless that is their strong personality trait, which can happen. But like, I want to see the journey. I want to see the arc because we are always ever changing people. And I want to see that in characters. It makes them more real to me. And I think that's the thing. When I'm consuming stories, I want the people in the stories to be as real as possible to me. And I don't know, it's just like a thing that I want. But I also want them to elicit strong emotions from me. Like, I want to either really hate them or really like them or really feel for them when they have these, like, tender moments. Like, I want to go on an emotional roller coaster, and I can only go on emotional roller coasters if the characters make me care about them. And they make me care about them by being these real people. Like, I consume stories because I want to see what these people are going through. Like, there are just some things that, like, if it's just plot, I'm not into. Now, on the flip side, if we talk about like the First Law trilogy with Joe Abercrombie, that's like all character work. And for some reason, and I haven't ever quite pinpointed it, I don't latch onto those characters as much as everyone else. I can objectively see that these are good characters, but I think for me, I never quite get their motivations, or maybe I understand their motivations, but like I don't find them compelling. Like, I'm just not ever really interested in them. And I think so that's like that nebulous quantity, right? Like, I think you can do everything I'm saying you should do as an author and storyteller, but there's still gonna be that nebulous X factor that's like, you're my character. And I think that's the same thing with like dating and making friends, is like, you can go on a dating site and you can have everyone check all the boxes, but until you meet them, how do you know? Like, so nebulous. So this is my chatty discussion on characters and what I really like. I kind of talked about stuff that I don't like too. Like, I don't know. And I think I also need to make an additional point on the strong personality things. Sometimes, if that strong personality is a quirk, it can go poorly for me. I'm thinking specifically of a character in the Reckoners trilogy. I don't despise the trilogy. I don't think it's Sanderson's strongest work. I'm usually used to his endings having a little bit more oomph than that one, but the main reason I don't love that is the main character, David, and you are only with him in its first-person point of view. He is a character, and he has a unique personality, and he has this quirk where he thinks of metaphors in his head and thinks they're funny, and I never thought any of them were funny, and I didn't like it. And I think that's why first person is a dicey point of view, because you can make someone closer to your character that way. But what if I don't want to be that close, right? Like, so that's one where it's just like, if we had been third person, I could have been further away and not have seen this quirk. Because I think all characters, if I got too close or spent too much time with them, it would be overdoing it. But I mean, that's also real life, right? Like, you cannot be too close to any one person. So basically what I'm saying is that I escape into my books a lot. And when I escape into my books, I want to see real people. And I want them to have real motivations. Because then the plot makes sense. I think a plot falls into place when your characters make decisions that make sense to the characters. But yeah, tell me about some things you really love in character works, examples of when it works and doesn't, even if something like should be perfect. Like, what is your First Law? Like, what is your series where, like, in theory, all of the character work stuff is up to your standards, but you just can't connect to them, and why you think that is? Because I think that's interesting. I think it's really easy to pinpoint why you like a character, but I think it's sometimes really hard to pinpoint why you don't like a character, even though, in theory, everything else lines up with why you said you liked this other character. So that's this video. If you want to leave an emoji, leave a smiley face, because I feel like we've just been talking about a lot of people, so smiley faces, right? And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!